What you're going to see over the next few minutes will be something of the record of a number of interviews that we've conducted in two settings. One was after a staff barbecue and the other one was at the Haas meeting about a couple of months ago. And students, alumni, members of staff have recorded something of their memory of Heythrop, particular aspects of Heythrop centred around moments, something that somebody said, something that they remember from a particular lecture or a particular lecturer. And what we're hoping is that this will be not just a record of what people have said, but will stimulate further conversation about what Heythrop has been and what Heythrop perhaps can still be for people.
You'll see a film that consists of a whole range of thoughts and reflections, special moments of students, alumni, staff and governors for Heythrop College. We hope that you will continue to contribute more thoughts and reflections to this collection as time goes on, and that it will become a focus, a resource for new thinking, for taking forward some of the ethos, some of the ideas, the heart of Heythrop into new, unknown and interesting projects and developments in the future.
I was very lucky because I studied here a BA in philosophy, and this has made me love this place. The memories that I have I will cherish until the end of my life, and I know that I have been so lucky.
It was an amazing experience because I studied Abrahamic religions, and before coming here I thought I knew everything about every other religion out there, and then I came and realized I knew nothing, and it definitely made me a better human being.
I completely fell in love with Heythrop when I very first came here for an open day. I just completely fell in love with the campus, with the atmosphere and with the people I met. It was wonderful, and then I couldn't go anywhere else, and I'm so glad I did because it formed me into the person that I am now.
I studied philosophy of religion and ethics. I actually really miss living on site because I lived when it was run by the Assumpta nuns. And it was just really lovely to be able to come and sit here and then go straight to lectures. Sometimes I'd still be late.
I had such a large amount of time and respect for you, even though you, as a student, you don't really know what you're talking about. I certainly still don't. And even now I can email them and they will agree a meeting and talk about these grand ideas and the philosophy that binds us all together, no matter what tradition you belong to or none.
It's been a place where I've met my friends, I've met the guys who will be best men at my wedding, and I've had the great joy of actually studying here, really understanding that philosophy theology is not just philosophy and theology in a book. It can be Kafka, it can be a lived experience.
Heythrop has been special to me because this is where I started the Budo Society, and we've been teaching martial arts at Heythrop or outside for nearly 10 years now, so we've made some fantastic friends and lasting relationships along with all the learning that's gone on.
Fostering a sense of education for the sake of education and learning for the sake of learning, and a passion for knowledge rather than to progress to the next stage or anything else like that. It was more finding something that you want to immerse yourself in and kind of just running with it.
It was quite narrow, really, the curriculum then, very very Thomistic, but still you did have to address these very deep questions, which I've come back to. I keep coming back to ever since. So in a way, I mean, the question of existence, for instance, what is existence? How do you explain existence? I still struggle with that. And that, of course, started at Heythrop in the 60s, reading the Summa Theologica.
I came in as a feisty young undergraduate, perhaps slightly too invigorated with certain theological ideas, and actually the college helped me to understand those and grow as an individual, and that was something that was shared amongst so many people that I've seen. And really the college brings about an excellent value and shows the value of theology and philosophy in the modern day and how we can use it in our lives.
And I was really, really hoping for a 2-1, but I wasn't sure, so I said, did I get a 2-2? And he said no, you got a 2-1. And apparently my girlfriend said that I then threw my bag in a puddle and did a little dance. And then I came in and actually looked at the evidence to confirm that it wasn't a lie. And then, that is the last time I came to Heythrop.
I studied philosophy, religion and ethics, and I feel like the ethics side has been really good for me because I now work for the Home Office in Syrian resettlement operations, and it's given me a really clear sense of sort of like right and wrong and just what we're actually giving people when we're essentially giving them an escape from a country where obviously that's a lot of their rights have been taken away, so the philosophy comes into it as well.
I think my abiding memories are living and studying here in Kensington Square, which is amazing, and also just the sheer privilege of being able to study with some of the amazing minds that you're exposed to here at Heythrop. And you know, sit at lunchtime, you'd be able to talk to your lecturers, and just sometimes I just remember being completely overawed by some of the conversations and thinking how lucky I was to be in that position and studying with people for whom their faith was central.
How can studying ancient Greek philosophy or Kierkegaard or philosophy of religion not help you? In your own journey of discovery, of who you are and on your potential too, and on how you can be of service. To others. In my particular case, I'm a Montessori teacher now. I work with the little ones, so I'm in contact with the good, the universal. The one with the capital G of Plato. So I have found this way, and Heythrop, I think, has been instrumental in this journey.
So what was really amazing was having this kind of group of 6 of us that went through it all together in these bigger lectures, but always knowing that we were the group that did P&T. And I really did just have the most wonderful time at Heythrop. It's influenced everything I've done in my life.
You really develop strong relationships around the subject that you're studying, and it's not just an academic subject, it's really something you're really inspired by the teachers. Another thing that I think is really great is the teachers gave you time, 2-hour tutorials, randomly organised on the morning of the tutorial. That kind of flexibility was brilliant.
I asked Peter Gallagher, who had supervised my undergrad dissertation, whether he could just offer a word of support for my application, and he said, "No problem, Maddie," and spoke to Pat, and I was allowed in, and it was hard work, but I've got there. I'm very nearly qualified now. I've given him my thesis, and I will never forget the integrity that Pat Riordan asked for and the faith that Peter Gallagher had in me.
One of the things that changed me massively was Peter Gallagher, and he was my favourite lecturer, and I absolutely loved every one of his lectures and did every module that he did. And the other thing was that I might have mentioned previously the Philosophy in the Mountains group that we've set up with a few other Heythropians, which is something that is carrying on and something that sort of Heythrop is going to live on through that organisation.
I'm Anna Wheeler, and I was at Heythrop from 2000 to 2003 doing the BA Theology, and then I worked as the undergraduate administrator until 2006. Heythrop is a place where theology and philosophy aren't taught in isolation. They're subjects taught in the context of the world, and you take them on with you when you leave and apply them to everyday experience. After all, this is the human condition we're talking about. I've really lots of memories of Heythrop, the quality of the lectures, the brilliant friends and colleagues, the banter in the lectures. But the memory which makes me smile are the Heythrop parties. We had them at great venues, really lovely hotels, and it was just lovely to see everyone out of their lecture-style seriousness. We laughed and we danced, and that makes me happy. And I'm really quite devastated that Heythrop is closing, because it's a loss of much more than just subject teaching. It's the loss of spirituality and deep meaning, which we all need.
I learned to be different with dignity. Maybe I'm robbing something from Jonathan Sacks in that respect, his book, The Dignity of Difference. But this is it was very meaningful to me, because I think Heythrop brought that out in me, that being different was more of an advantage than a disadvantage.
went to a service up in Farm Street, and I wasn't used to priests in all their vestments, and lots of the lecturers had their vestments on at the back where we went for wine. And I remember thinking, oh dear, I suppose 400 years ago, I said to one of the lecturers, Michael Kerwin was there with the other lecturers, and he introduced me and said, oh, Jill, he said, come and meet the others. And he said, I said, I suppose 400 years ago, you would have burnt me at the stake. And he said, but we have other ways now. And that made me just relax and laugh. And I knew then that it was like a home. Well, I've learnt the other ways.
I think it's the existence of a community which you can plug into, or have been able to plug into at any time, where you're guaranteed an interesting and enlivening discussion and a sense of belonging. And that's something very precious. I hope that in some way those things can survive beyond the closure of these buildings.
And for me, possibly as a younger person, younger than James anyway, I'd never done any theology before I'd come to Heythrop, and the sense of learning something of real value with other people who were as excited as I was something very, very precious. I don't think there are many degrees where you feel that what you're learning is life-changing, but in this situation I did.
I think my favourite memory of Heythrop has to be the process of working on Curriculum 2015. Okay, I know that it never got launched. It was the plan to save the college, and in the end we never used it. But the process of developing it over those few years between 2013 and 2015, led by Gwen Griffith-Dixon, were enormously powerful for me. I learned a great deal. The whole college community really came together, and we defined as a community what our vision for philosophy and theology and higher education were.
The number of priests or religious who are able to be involved in theology are declining, but there is an emerging, very impressive and strong group of lay Catholic theologians. They need to be helped by the institutional church as well as by academic institutions. Heythrop did provide that context, and something after Heythrop needs to be able to help and sustain and encourage.
Heythrop's been a really friendly place to study. I've enjoyed the studies on theology, on philosophy, on making friends, conversations in the canteen, things that can and can't be repeated. It's been great.
We'd still like to keep in touch with the community of Heythrop because that's what made it such a special place. But also the physical place of Heythrop losing that is going to make such a massive difference. Just the grounds, the halls, the lecture halls, just losing that is such a big piece of what Heythrop meant to us. It's what we kind of associate with it. So.
It has been so nice to come back today though. I think there's nowhere else like Heythrop. I've always loved Heythrop. I think that the thing that I particularly remember my whole time here was most of the times in the gardens, which you can probably hear around us, but every single summer we were here, every single moment that it wasn't raining we were here, every single moment that people weren't studying, everyone was out in the gardens being able to converse about difficult topics and to be able to engage people in conversations that were a little bit more than whatever was going on in the news that day.
More and more as business changes its direction, the call is, can we have more people trained in the discernment thinking that philosophy brings? And every time I've been to a student event here, I say to an audience that's quite frankly suspicious, is we need more of you, and you need to think more of yourselves, because the world needs you.
Apparently John McDade thought of it when he had a blessed but narrow escape from the train that was bombed in 1977. Yes. And he decided he wanted to set up a degree that would enable different communities in London and beyond to talk to each other.
Did it happen?
Yes.
What happened? How did it work?
Well, the idea was that students would spend 3 years together, students from either no faith or different faith communities, primarily from Christians, Muslims and Jews, and that they would get to know each other and study their respective faiths and traditions. And it worked very beautifully. A number of them have gone into interfaith activities in different parts of the country and the world. And it was a pioneering venture. There is no other BA in Abrahamic religions, as far as I know.
I think my strongest memory of Heythrop has to do with the bombings in London on 7/7, because I was on the train that was blown up at Edgware Road. 3 days later, we were to have a meeting, a conference with Shia Muslim scholars from Qom in Iran. And of course, this event was coloured that meeting, and both Christians and Muslims on that day committed themselves to peace and to reconciliation. And as a consequence of that, I had the idea of starting a degree in Abrahamic religions, a BA in Abrahamic religions, that was to bring together Muslims, Jews and Christians to study the particular religious features of each of these traditions and the common themes they have: scripture, ethics, spirituality, and we launched that degree. I think it was certainly the first in this country, but it was expressive of the mission of Heythrop to extend a hospitality intellectually and spiritually to people of a different perspective, and to bring together serious scholarship and dialogue.
I think he was a brilliant lecturer, and when we listened to him in the evening, it just seemed all so simple and straightforward, listening to him for 2 hours. Then I went away and started to read some of the research in the books and found that I couldn't always make sense of it, but he made it all so simple and so clear, and he was one of the most brilliant lecturers that I've ever listened to.
One of the things I'll take away mostly is about the people, how diverse they are, how quirky and interesting and fun to be around. And it was just lovely coming into work every day, and very difficult leaving in the evening. Very supportive environment, very intellectual environment. Obviously, it's a college of philosophy and theology. And in 2014, there was a 400th year anniversary conference where I got to see a lot of the academics in action, because I don't get to see that tucked away in HR. And that was a memorable time as well.
I'm Brendan Callaghan. As principal of Heythrop, in the appropriate years, I brought Heythrop to Kensington Square. And I can just about reconstruct the original conversation where I phoned up from Cavendish Square to the bursar here and asked whether there was a possibility of Heythrop moving here. The rest, as they say, is history.
And students who come here, they really are a class apart. I remember on the following June of 2015 walking across the garden on the first exam day and wishing two guys who were sitting on a bench here the best of good luck. And I had not known them. They were third years. I had never met them. They thanked me so profusely, and one of them coming out from the exam said to me, "Oh, it was so good of you to wish us luck." And I think that's the calibre of students who have been here.
But I really feel sad at the thought that we're losing a real context for coherent, academically rigorous, honest exchanges about difficult issues.
Really, Heythrop has been my home for the last 10 years in one way or another. And I've got so many wonderful memories of being a student here, particularly being taught by John McDade, hanging on to his every word, and all the other wonderful teachers. I've met some of the best friends I have in the world here, and wonderful colleagues in my professional life as well. It's been a great way to start my career. And also, I mustn't forget that I met the man that I'm going to marry here, so that's another special reason that Heythrop's been a wonderful part of my life.
I think it's a paradigm example of a religious
understanding of other people and the ability to press you to think harder about whatever it is your faith tells you.
Peter Vardy, in my first year as an undergraduate here, belly flopping onto a table and starting to swim. And he said, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" And he was kicking his legs and waving his arms. And all of us looked at each other and thought to myself, my goodness, what is he doing? He's gone mad. And then he proceeded to say something incredibly profound and amazing, as he usually did, or always did, I should say. Now I can't remember what that was, but I remember the actual event of him actually jumping on it. It was very theatrical. I remember one lecture where he jumped onto a table and he said, "I am God, and I see the beginning and the end and all of time at this." And he sort of taught about the immanent God and the transcendent God and things like that. The way he taught was very, very theatrical, very charismatic. It was a wonderful thing to be a part of. I've been quite lucky to see Heythrop in a multifacet. No, I don't want to do this. I'm doing it.
I taught philosophy of religion, much of it in conjunction with Peter Vardy. And I suppose my prevailing memory is of Peter Vardy trying to explain to students the philosophical problems associated with divine omniscience by standing on a chair and or even a table sometimes to show God looking down at people walking along the road beneath. I particularly valued the fact that Heythrop was such an inclusive community, that everybody was welcome.
And I love the idea that Heythrop is a place where you can be your professional self, in my case student support, but also your whole self. And I think that's such a rare thing in the workplace, to be able to be your whole self.
Don't hide behind your intellectual capacity. Bring yourself as a human person that philosophy and theology allows you to bring forward, and be yourself. We have too many people hiding from good decisions by being smarter than the next person. What philosophy and theology teaches you is the courage to believe everyone has potential. That creates the relationships that will transform the world for good.
I think the best part of my life at Heythrop was the Curriculum 2015 project, because all the stuff came together. We had students involved, we had a lot of very clear thinking, very blue sky thinking about teaching the subjects in the college in new and exciting ways, and it was a really good collegial experience, which is something that will live with me for a very long time.
I taught at Heythrop from 1984 until 2004. I loved it. I greatly enjoyed it. I thought we've had a very particular atmosphere here, as well as a great level of academic expertise and ability and success. We've had a collegiate atmosphere, which is something very special.
Heythrop College has had an incredibly profound effect upon me personally, both as a student, as a tutor, as an undergraduate administrator here. It changes the way you think about work, about ethics. It makes you want to ask questions, to better yourself, and that's probably one of the sort of most beautiful things I think I'll take away.
I have a strong love for Heythrop. Very, very sad to see it go, but have great memories. Had a great time here, and Heythrop definitely helped shape me to become the person that I am today. So I will always be grateful for the experiences, the staff, and the opportunities that I got at Heythrop.
A long time ago, I was an undergraduate and I completed the BA in philosophy and theology, I think in 1989, and I really loved my studies at Heythrop. It was a really great course. I had all the people that we often associate. So Jerry Hughes is my teacher, Peter Vardy is my teacher, Joe Lacey was my teacher, Elizabeth Lord, Mari Isaac. So a kind of real golden generation of theologians were my teachers, and I really loved that.
Heythrop was quite distinctive, and I'm sure that its Jesuit ethos has a great deal to do with that. I don't say it can't be found outside there, but it's certainly, I think it's integral to it. So I think it has a character, a moral and an intellectual character, which I think is not found in many other places. especially not in today's academic world.
But you feel you're in a place where religion is taken seriously and critically. And that is quite hard to maintain in some English academic areas.
And it's drawing down to the end of the class time, the last class, the last of Father Barnes's formidable classes in Christianity and dialogue. And then he just looks at us all in his searching kind of a way and says, I never really felt that I got this class quite right. I never really nailed this one. And he's sort of shuffling around with his papers a little bit. We knew that was the end of the class. He looked at us. None of us responded. None of us really said anything. We all sort of sat there, realizing that that was the last class. The answer was there. It was in him. It wasn't in the books, it wasn't in the syllabus, it wasn't in what we wrote. It was in actually being there together. And suddenly, without any real conversation, we all stood up and said, let's go and say thank you. I can't remember who. Someone poked their head round his office. We're all, into his office. We're all standing there. He was a bit startled, and he came out. Maybe he was expecting a protest. I don't know what he was expecting. And as he came out, we all just clapped. We just applauded. As if to say what we hadn't said in that very last moment of the class. You got it right, Father Barnes. You got it right. It was perfect. You were perfect. We just want to let you know that. And I guess that's how I felt about Heythrop. Everything about it was the being here. It wasn't really about the books, and it wasn't really about the papers, and it wasn't really about anything in particular, but the being there together, and the magic that occurred in this place. And I guess that's all I have to say.
There was still some being said here. Thanks. Some,